There was a time in my life when I thought losing everything meant I had failed. I looked at the things that disappeared from my life. The people I trusted, the plans I had built, the dreams I thought were guaranteed, and I wondered what was left. When everything familiar started falling away, I felt like I was standing in the middle of an empty room, surrounded by silence, trying to understand where I had gone wrong. But sometimes, life takes things away from you, not because you are being punished, but because you have become too attached to things that were never meant to define you. I had to learn that the hard way: when people leave, when plans collapse, when something you worked for doesn't happen, your first instinct is usually to ask, why me? But eventually, a better question begins to emerge. What is this trying to teach me? That question changed everything for me. Because when I stopped focusing on what I had lost, I started paying attention to what I was becoming. I discovered that I had spent years measuring myself through external things. I thought success meant having everything under control. I thought strength meant never being hurt. I thought confidence meant never doubting myself. I thought happiness depended on having the right people beside me and having life unfold according to my plans. Then life disrupted the entire equation. And strangely enough, that disruption became one of the greatest opportunities of my life. When there was nobody left to impress, I had to meet myself. When there was nothing left to hide behind, I had to confront my fears. When certain people were no longer around to validate me, I had to learn how to validate myself. And when some of my plans disappeared, I had to become courageous enough to create new ones. That's when I realized something powerful. Sometimes losing your old life is the beginning of discovering your real one. You begin to understand what actually matters. You stop wasting energy trying to convince people who don't believe in you. You stop chasing relationships that constantly make you question your worth. You stop pretending you're okay just because admitting you're hurting feels uncomfortable. You become more honest with yourself, and that honesty changes you. I don't want to tell my future wife that I arrived in her life without scars. I don't want to pretend that I had everything figured out before I found her. The truth is, some of the most important lessons I needed to learn came through moments when I felt completely lost. Those moments taught me patience. They taught me resilience. They taught me that rebuilding is sometimes more meaningful than maintaining. And most importantly, they taught me that I don't need another person to complete me. I need to become whole within myself so that when love arrives, I can share my life with someone rather than asking them to save it. That's the kind of man I want to be when I meet you. I want to come into your life knowing who I am. I want to have my own purpose, my own values, my own dreams, and the courage to keep moving forward when life becomes difficult. And I want you to have exactly the same freedom. I don't want us to become two incomplete people, desperately trying to fill each other's emptiness. I want us to become two strong people, choosing to build something greater together. So, if you ever wonder why I value the love we will have so deeply, remember this. I know what it feels like to lose things I thought I could never live without. And that experience taught me something I will never forget. Sometimes life takes everything away from you, not to leave you empty, but to finally make room for the person you were always meant to become. There was a period in my life when loneliness felt like something I needed to escape from. I would look around and see people moving forward, building relationships, creating memories, laughing together, and I would wonder why my own life felt so quiet. I wanted someone beside me, someone who understood what I was thinking without requiring me to explain every part of myself. Someone who could make the silence feel less heavy. But eventually, I realized that loneliness wasn't always my enemy. Sometimes, loneliness is where you meet yourself for the first time. When nobody is around to distract you, you begin hearing the thoughts you've been avoiding. You start asking questions you were too busy to ask before. What do I really want? Who am I when nobody is watching? What kind of life do I actually want to build? What kind of person do I need to become before I can share my life with someone else? Those questions weren't always comfortable. There were nights when I wanted an answer immediately. I wanted life to send me someone who would make everything feel better. But with time, I understood something important. Another person cannot become the solution to a life you haven't learned how to live. I had to learn how to stand on my own. I had to become comfortable with my own company. I had to build strength without needing constant reassurance. I had to understand that being alone and being abandoned are not the same thing. Being alone can be a season of preparation. It can give you space to grow without constantly being influenced by other people's expectations. And that season changed my understanding of love. Before, I thought love was primarily about finding someone who made me feel complete. Now I see it differently. Real love isn't two empty people desperately trying to fill each other's gaps. It's two people who have grown individually and then decide to build something together. That's what I want for us. I don't want to meet you because I'm desperate for someone to rescue me from loneliness. I want to meet you because I've learned how to live with myself, and now I have something meaningful to share with you. My loneliness taught me patience. It taught me not to accept the first person who shows interest, simply because I was afraid of being alone. It taught me that temporary attention isn't the same thing as genuine love. Someone can be physically present and still make you feel completely invisible. And someone can be far away while still making you feel deeply understood. So when I finally find you, I won't measure our relationship by how much time we spend together or how perfect everything looks from the outside. I'll measure it by trust, by honesty, by how safe we feel telling each other the truth, by whether we can sit together on an ordinary evening and still feel grateful that we found each other. Because loneliness taught me to appreciate connection. It taught me that the right person doesn't simply bring excitement into your life. The right person brings peace. They don't make you constantly question where you stand. They don't make you compete for their attention. They don't make you feel like you have to become someone else just to deserve their love. And when I find you, I want you to know that I will recognize the difference. I will understand that your presence is not something I am entitled to. It is something I am grateful for. Maybe that's why the lonely years mattered. Maybe every quiet night was teaching me how to recognize a genuine connection when it finally appeared. Maybe every unanswered question was preparing me for the moment when I wouldn't need to search anymore. So, my future wife, if I ever tell you that I waited for you, I don't mean I simply sat around hoping someone would arrive. I mean, I spent that time becoming the kind of person who could finally appreciate you when you did. I thought loneliness was the chapter where I was waiting for you, but now I understand. It was the chapter where life was preparing me to recognize you when you finally arrived. One of the hardest lessons I had to learn was understanding that not everyone I loved was meant to remain in my life. For a long time, I believed that if I cared enough, tried hard enough, explained myself clearly enough, or gave someone enough chances, I could make them stay. I thought losing people meant I hadn't done enough, so I kept chasing. I kept reaching out when the other person had already pulled away. I kept trying to repair things that only one person was willing to repair. I kept giving explanations to people who had already decided what they wanted to believe about me. And every time someone walked away, I questioned myself. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I should have tried harder. Maybe I should have been different. But eventually, I realized something that completely changed how I looked at relationships. You cannot build a permanent connection by yourself. Love requires two people. Trust requires two people. Commitment requires two people. If one person is constantly running toward the relationship while the other person is constantly running away from it, eventually the person running forward has to stop. Not because they stopped caring, because they finally started caring about themselves too. That lesson wasn't easy. Letting go can feel like admitting defeat. Sometimes you know someone isn't good for your life, but your heart still remembers the good moments. You remember the conversations, the laughter, the promises, the dreams you once discussed together. You remember who they were when everything felt right, and you keep hoping that version of them will come back. But you can't build your future around someone's potential. You have to pay attention to their choices. I learned that people can be important to your story without being part of your entire story. Some people come into your life to teach you something. Some show you what love feels like. Others show you what love should never feel like. Some stay for years, and some stay only long enough to change the direction of your life. And that's okay. Not every goodbye is a tragedy. Sometimes a goodbye is protection. Sometimes losing someone is actually the beginning of finding yourself again. When I stopped chasing people who didn't want to stay, I created space for peace. I stopped checking whether someone had changed their mind. I stopped wondering why I wasn't receiving the same effort I was giving. I stopped trying to convince people of my value. And slowly, I understood that my worth doesn't decrease simply because someone failed to recognize it. That realization matters, especially when I think about you, my future wife. Because when you enter my life, I don't want to bring the desperation of my past into our relationship. I don't want to constantly fear that you're going to leave because someone else once did. I don't want to make you pay for wounds you didn't create. Instead, I want to love you from a place of confidence. I want to choose you, not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because I genuinely believe that life is better when we build it together. And I want you to have that same freedom. If one day you need space, I want us to communicate. If something hurts, I want us to talk. If we disagree, I want us to work through it instead of threatening each other with separation. I don't want our relationship to survive because either of us is afraid to leave. I want it to survive because every day we freely choose each other. That's the difference. Real love doesn't need to be chased every morning. It needs to be nurtured. It needs honesty, patience, forgiveness, respect, and effort from both sides. So I stopped chasing people who were never meant to stay, not because I stopped believing in love, but because I finally started believing in the kind of love that doesn't require me to abandon myself. And maybe that's what all those endings were preparing me for. They were teaching me to stop begging for a place in someone's life and start building a life where the right person would naturally have a place beside me. I stopped chasing those who chose to leave because I finally understood that the right love will never require me to lose myself just to make someone stay. And after everything I had learned about loss, loneliness, and letting go, I began to understand something even deeper about love. I didn't need someone to rescue me from my past. I needed to become strong enough to walk beyond it myself. I needed to stop waiting for another person to arrive and somehow repair everything that had been broken. Then, one day, the idea of you became different. I stopped imagining you as someone who would save me, and I started imagining you as someone I could build with. There is a huge difference between those two things. Rescue means I am waiting for you to fix what I refuse to face. Building means I have faced my past, learned from it, and now I want someone beside me as I create something meaningful. That's what I want when I finally meet you. I don't want you to carry the weight of everything I've been through. I don't want you to feel responsible for making me happy every moment of every day. I don't want to place unrealistic expectations on your shoulders and call that love. I want to meet you as a man who has already learned how to stand. Then, together, we can become stronger, because your love won't erase my past, And honestly, I don't want it to. My past made me who I am. The failures taught me humility. The disappointments taught me patience. The lonely seasons taught me independence. The people who left taught me the value of those who genuinely stay. You won't have to erase those lessons. You'll simply become part of the reason I believe that my story, Slake, doesn't have to end where it once hurt. That's what you will mean to me. You will remind me that life can surprise us in beautiful ways. That after losing something, we can still discover something better. That after being disappointed, we can still trust again. That after spending years protecting our hearts, we can eventually find someone with whom vulnerability doesn't feel dangerous. And I want to give that gift back to you. I want to be someone who makes you believe in love too, not through perfect words, but through consistent actions, through showing up when things are difficult, through listening when you need to be heard, through respecting your dreams instead of competing with them, through celebrating your victories as if they were my own, through holding your hand when life becomes uncertain and reminding you that you don't have to face everything alone, because I don't believe love is supposed to make us smaller. I believe the right love should make both people stronger. If you have a dream, I want to encourage you to pursue it. If you are afraid, I want to remind you of your strength. If you fail, I don't want you to feel ashamed. I want us to look at the failure, learn from it, and keep moving forward. And when I have difficult days, I want the same from you. I want us to be partners, not saviors. There will probably be moments when life doesn't go according to plan. There will be financial pressures, unexpected problems, disagreements, exhaustion, and days when neither of us feels particularly strong. That's reality. I don't want to promise you a life without difficulty. I want to promise you that difficulty won't automatically make us turn against each other. We'll face the problem together. That's the kind of love I believe in now. So, my future wife, when you eventually come into my life, don't think you are arriving to save a broken man. You're not. You're meeting someone who has already learned how to rebuild. You're meeting someone who has survived enough to understand the value of peace, loyalty, honesty, and genuine connection. And your presence will simply give me another reason to believe that all those difficult chapters were leading somewhere. Maybe you won't be the person who rescued me. Maybe you'll be something far more meaningful. You'll be the person who makes me look at everything I've survived and realize that I was never surviving for nothing. You won't save me from my past. You'll stand beside me as I turn everything I survived into the foundation of the life we build together. There is something my past taught me that I could never have learned from simply reading about love or hearing someone describe it. Experience has a way of teaching lessons that words cannot. I learned what it feels like to give someone your trust and have that trust mishandled. I learned what it feels like to care deeply and still realize that caring alone cannot make a relationship work. And I learned that sometimes you don't understand the value of something until you've experienced what it feels like to live without it. That's why, when I think about you, I don't just think about loving you. I think about appreciating you. I want you to feel valued in the ordinary moments, not only during special occasions. I want you to know that your presence matters even when we're sitting quietly together and nothing exciting is happening. I want to notice the small things. The way you smile when you're genuinely happy, the things that make you nervous, the dreams you don't always talk about, and the little habits that make you uniquely you. Because I've learned that love isn't built only through grand gestures. It's built through consistency. It's remembering what matters to the person beside you. It's asking how their day went and actually listening to the answer. It's keeping your word when nobody is watching. It's apologizing when you're wrong instead of protecting your ego. It's being honest even when the truth is uncomfortable. It's choosing respect during an argument when anger makes disrespect feel easier. My past taught me that love without respect eventually becomes painful. Love without honesty becomes confusing. Love without trust becomes exhausting. And love without effort slowly becomes something neither person recognizes anymore. I don't want that for us. I don't want you to spend years wondering where you stand with me. I don't want you to question whether I still care because I've become too comfortable to show it. I don't want you to feel like you're competing against my work, my ambitions, my phone, my distractions, or anything else for a place in my life. If I choose you, I want you to know that choice through my actions. There will be days when I won't have the perfect words. There will be moments when I make mistakes. I'm human, and I know that love doesn't magically remove imperfections. But I can promise you that I will keep learning. If I hurt you, I want to understand why. If I disappoint you, I want to listen. If we disagree, I want to find the truth instead of simply trying to win, because a relationship isn't a competition where one person wins and the other loses. If we're building a life together, we're on the same side, and I want your happiness to matter to me without making you responsible for mine. That's an important lesson my past gave me. You deserve to have your own identity, your own ambitions, your own friendships, your own dreams, and your own space. I don't want to possess you. I want to know you. I want to understand you. I want to grow alongside you. I want our love to feel like freedom, not a cage. I want us to look back years from now and realize that we didn't simply survive life together. We actually lived it. We built things. We took risks. We laughed at ridiculous moments. We supported each other through failures. We celebrated victories. We created memories that nobody else could have created for us. And when life becomes difficult, I want the lessons of my past to make me more patient with you, not more suspicious of you. I don't want to punish you for what someone else did. You are not my past. You are not responsible for my old wounds. You deserve to be loved for who you are. So if I ever tell you that my past changed the way I love, this is what I mean. It taught me that genuine love is not about saying the most beautiful things. It's about making the person beside you feel safe, respected, heard, and chosen. Again and again, my past taught me what love can cost. So when I finally find you, I will spend every day proving that your love is something I will never take for granted. There is something I want you to know about me before we build a life together. I don't want to pretend that my past never hurt me. I don't want to walk into your life acting like I've always been confident, certain, and completely unshaken. I haven't. There were moments when I questioned myself, moments when I felt lost, and moments when I had to rebuild parts of myself that I thought would never break. But I no longer see those moments as something I need to hide. They are part of my story. For a long time, I thought strength meant keeping everything inside. I thought being strong meant never admitting that something hurt. If someone asked how I was doing, the easiest answer was always, I'm fine, even when I wasn't, even when something was bothering me, even when I needed someone to listen. Eventually, I realized that hiding pain doesn't make you stronger. Understanding it does. There is a difference between being controlled by your past and learning from it. I don't want my scars to become excuses for how I treat people. I don't want to carry old wounds into a new relationship and expect you to heal things you didn't break. Instead, I want to be honest about them. If something scares me, I want to be able to tell you. If something from my past makes me uncertain, I want to explain it instead of becoming distant. If I make a mistake because I misunderstood something, I want to admit it rather than allowing pride to create distance between us. That's what real communication means to me. It isn't simply talking when everything is easy. It's having the courage to speak when you're vulnerable, And I want you to feel that same freedom with me. I want you to tell me about your scars too. You don't have to arrive in my life perfectly healed. You don't have to hide the parts of yourself you're still learning to understand. You don't have to pretend you've never made mistakes. I won't expect perfection from you, because I don't expect it from myself. What I want is honesty. I want us to be able to sit across from each other and say, this is what happened to me. This is why sometimes I react this way. This is what I'm still learning. This is what I'm afraid of. And instead of judging each other, we listen. Because sometimes the most intimate thing you can give another person isn't a perfect version of yourself. It's the truth. My past taught me that people can misunderstand what they don't know. That's why I don't want silence to speak for me. I don't want you guessing what I'm feeling. I don't want you wondering why I've become quiet or distant when I could simply tell you what's happening inside my mind. I want us to communicate before small problems become enormous ones. And there will be times when we both get it wrong. There will be disagreements. There will be moments when emotions are stronger than logic. There may be days when one of us needs space before we can have a productive conversation. That's okay. The goal isn't to never have problems. The goal is to never let pride become more important than the relationship. I want to be able to say, I was wrong. I want to be able to say, I'm sorry. I want to be able to say, I don't fully understand, but I want to. Those simple words can protect something far more valuable than winning an argument ever could. So, when I tell you about my scars, I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm showing you where I've been so you can understand where I'm going. Every scar represents something I survived, something I learned, or something that changed the way I see life. And now, instead of hiding those experiences, I can use them to become more thoughtful, more patient, and more intentional about the love I give you. I want you to know the real me, not a carefully edited version designed to impress you, but the person behind the confidence, the ambitions, the mistakes, the fears, and the dreams. Because if we're going to spend our lives together, I don't want our relationship built on appearances. I want it built on truth. And if you ever show me your own scars, I won't see them as damage. I'll see them as evidence that you kept going. I will never ask you to hide your scars. Because the right kind of love doesn't demand perfection. It gives two imperfect people the courage to be completely honest and still choose each other. After everything I've experienced, everything I've lost, and everything I had to rebuild, I've started to understand that home isn't always a place. For a long time, I thought home meant a house, a city, a familiar room, or somewhere I could return to at the end of the day. But life has a way of changing your definition of home. Sometimes home is a feeling. It's the feeling of knowing you don't have to perform for someone. You don't have to pretend you're stronger than you are. You don't have to carefully choose every word because you're afraid the wrong sentence will make someone walk away. You can simply breathe, relax, and be yourself. That's the kind of home I want us to create. My future wife, I don't want our relationship to be a place where either of us feels trapped. I want it to be the place where both of us feel free enough to become who we're meant to become. I want you to be able to come home after a difficult day and know that you don't have to carry everything alone. Maybe I won't always have the perfect solution. Maybe sometimes all I can do is sit beside you and listen. But I want you to know that you won't have to face every difficult moment by yourself anymore. And I want the same from you. There will be days when I come home exhausted, days when something doesn't work, days when a plan fails or a dream takes longer than expected. There will be moments when I question myself and wonder whether I'm moving in the right direction. On those days, I don't need someone to tell me that everything is perfect. I need someone who can look at me and say, we'll figure it out. That simple sentence can mean everything, because home isn't about having a perfect life. It's about having someone beside you while you're living an imperfect one. I want us to build that kind of connection, a relationship where we can laugh about the smallest things, where ordinary dinners become memories, where a quiet evening together can feel more valuable than an expensive celebration, where we can talk about our biggest dreams and our most ridiculous ideas without worrying about being judged. I want us to build a place where honesty is normal. If you're unhappy, tell me. If you're excited, tell me. If you're scared, tell me. If you need help, ask me. If you need space, communicate it. And if something is wrong between us, let's have the courage to face it instead of pretending everything is fine. That's what home should feel like. Sove enough for truth, strong enough for disagreement, open enough for growth, and warm enough that after a difficult day, you still want to come back. I also want to understand that home doesn't mean we become the same person. I don't want to erase your individuality. I want you to have your own dreams and ambitions. I want you to keep discovering yourself even after we get married. If you want to build something, I'll support you. If you want to learn something new, I'll encourage you. If you want to take a risk, I'll help you think through it. And if you fail, I'll remind you that one failure doesn't define your entire story. Because I want our home to be more than a place where we live. I want it to be a place where we grow. Maybe that's what all the loss taught me. When you've had things disappear from your life, you stop taking stability for granted. You begin to understand how valuable it is to have someone who stays. Not because they are obligated to, but because they genuinely want to. That's the kind of love I want to give you. Not perfect love, real love, the kind that survives ordinary days, the kind that communicates during difficult moments, the kind that celebrates small victories, the kind that doesn't disappear when life becomes inconvenient. And when we eventually look around at the life we've built, I want us to realize that we didn't just create a beautiful house. We created a beautiful place for two people to belong, because after everything I lost, I finally understand that home isn't where life is perfect. Home is where two imperfect people can finally put down their armor, tell the truth, and know that they are still safe in each other's hearts. After everything I've lost, everything I've learned, and every chapter that forced me to become stronger, there's one thing I understand more clearly than ever. When something truly valuable finally enters your life, you don't treat it like it's guaranteed. You appreciate it, you protect it, you show up for it. And that's how I feel when I think about you, my future wife. I don't know exactly when our paths will cross or what circumstances will bring us together. But I know that if you become the woman I build my life with, I will never look at your presence as something ordinary, because I've experienced what it feels like to lose things I thought would always remain. I've watched plans disappear. I've watched relationships change. I've had moments when the future I imagined suddenly looked completely different. And those experiences taught me that nothing meaningful should be taken for granted. Especially love. When I find you, I don't want to become comfortable and forgetful. I don't want the excitement of the beginning to disappear, because we eventually get used to each other. I want to keep discovering you. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're dreaming about. I want to know what makes you laugh when nobody else is around. I want to know what you're afraid of. I want to know what kind of future you secretly imagine for yourself. Because loving someone isn't simply knowing who they are today. It's being curious about who they're becoming tomorrow. And I want to keep choosing that person. There will be ordinary days. A lot of them. Days when nothing exciting happens. Days when we're tired. Days when we're busy with responsibilities. Days when we're sitting in the same room doing completely different things. But I don't want ordinary to become invisible. I want to appreciate those moments, because someday we may look back and realize Those quiet evenings were some of the most beautiful parts of our story. I want to remember the small things, the conversations before falling asleep, the laughter over something that nobody else would understand, the way we encourage each other when something matters deeply to us, the little traditions we create without even realizing they're becoming traditions. That's where I think real love becomes powerful. Not only in dramatic moments, but in thousands of small choices. Choosing patience, choosing honesty, choosing forgiveness, choosing communication, choosing to listen, choosing to stay present, choosing each other, even when the day hasn't gone perfectly. I don't want to promise that I'll never make mistakes. I will. There will be moments when I misunderstand you, moments when I'm distracted, moments when I don't respond the way I should. But I want to promise something more realistic and more meaningful. I will keep learning how to love you better. I will keep paying attention. I will keep growing. Because finding the right person is not the finish line, it's the beginning of a responsibility to protect trust, a responsibility to communicate, a responsibility to never make someone feel foolish for being vulnerable with you. And if life ever becomes difficult, I want us to remember why we chose each other in the first place. We didn't choose each other because life would always be easy. We chose each other because we believed that life would be better facing its challenges together. That's the difference between temporary excitement and lasting love. Temporary excitement asks, "How do you make me feel?" Real commitment asks, "How can I make your life better?" That's the question I want to keep asking. How can I support you? How can I make you feel appreciated? How can I protect the trust you've placed in me? How can I help you become the person you want to become? And I hope you ask me those questions too, because I don't want our relationship to be one person giving while the other simply receives. I want it to be a partnership where both of us contribute, both of us grow, and both of us continue choosing the relationship. So, my future wife, if I lost everything before finding you, maybe that wasn't the end of my story. Maybe those losses taught me how precious something real can be. Maybe every goodbye taught me how to appreciate a hello. Maybe every lonely night taught me not to overlook companionship. Maybe every disappointment taught me to recognize genuine love when it finally appeared. And if that moment comes, I won't treat it casually. I will look at you and understand that your presence is a gift, not an entitlement. I will never promise that I'll love you perfectly, but I can promise that I will never stop trying to love you intentionally. Because after losing so much before finding you, I won't spend the rest of my life taking your presence for granted. I will spend it proving that finding you was worth everything I had to survive.